All I ever wanted was to touch eternity for an instant. To reach one of those rare moments of bliss, where everything seems in its place and you feel you're part of a whole.
The wind rushing through whatever hair I've got left on my head, the cutting, stinging cold against my bare skin, the scrapes on my bleeding, aching fingertips as I once again try to pull myself up by a small, sharp outcrop of rock. Cairn, developed by the game bakers, brought me closer to the experience of mountaineering than any other medium ever has. And it's an experience I would not have wanted to miss. It is one filled with a wide range of emotions and sensations. At times frustration and hopelessness, but above all, struggle, resilience and beauty. Cairn will stay with me for a long time.
Are you ready for Cammy?
This review contains no spoilers. Traditionally, I begin my reviews by discussing the story, but this is not what Cairn lives or dies by. Protagonist Ava aims to be the first person to reach the summit of Mount Kami. And Ava is exactly what you would expect from someone on such a mission. Relentlessly driven, single-mindedly focused on her goal. Through your mechanical companion, the Climbot, you occasionally receive messages from the small home front you left behind. These offer a little insight into who Ava is as a person. It's all fairly cliché and I couldn't help but feel there was far more potential here in terms of character and narrative development. Years from now, very little of this story will stay with me. The experience itself, on the other hand, is an entirely different matter. Many games, no matter how different they may seem, share the same underlying skeleton dressed up in a different coat of paint. Walking, jumping, shooting, parrying, and even climbing, the visuals, timing and surrounding mechanics may vary wildly, but at their core they often amount to the same thing. In many adventure games, protagonists can effortlessly scale walls or mountains like in Uncharted or the Tomb Raider games. But in how many games do you control 4 separate limbs of the protagonist, step by step? As of now, I can think of, well, one. Of course, in Cairn you can also move around like you would in other games, exploring its beautiful environment and scavenging for resources that will help you on your journey. But the real joy begins the moment you stand at the foot of a mountain, press square and actual climbing starts. From that point on, Ava is effectively split into 4 different limbs. You control the position of her hands and feet one by one. Everything in between moves along with them. Often, though not always, in a fairly natural way, taking into account your weight distribution and the surfaces you are clinging to or standing on. Shaking legs and groaning can be a good sign in certain situations, but not in Cairn. When your weight distribution or the support beneath you is off, Ava starts sending clear signals. It's crucial to pay attention to her posture, breathing and limbs. If you maneuver the climber into an unfavorable, overstrained position, the limb under the most stress will begin to tremble. At that point you need to act as quickly as possible to stabilize Ava's position. It's obvious when you are about to lose your grip. You can hear and see her struggling while the screen slowly fades and dulls. Within 5 seconds or so it can all be over and you come crashing down with all the consequences that entails. Before that happens, you can press triangle a few times at small intervals to recover some stamina and hold your position a little longer, buying time to look for a proper solution. All of this happens under intense pressure because a fatal fall means you have to pick things up from your last save point, which may have been quite some time ago. The longest stretch of progress I personally lost in a single fall was around 45 minutes. The game automatically selects the limb with the least amount of grip at that moment, but this works better in theory than it does in practice. In many situations, it's more effective to manually select the limb you want to stabilize as quickly as possible. As the game went on, I found myself doing this more and more often, since the automatic selection put me in life-threatening situations more than once. That could be a bit frustrating at times. It's not only essential to keep an eye on Ava's visual cues, it's just as important to carefully read the mountain itself. Cairn is absolutely not a linear experience. There are countless routes and options to reach your goal, and they all vary wildly in difficulty. By thoroughly exploring the environment, you may get lucky and come across maps that show which routes are easiest within a given area. For most of the expedition, however, I did not find these maps, which means you have to chart your own path with care. After all, you don't want to realize halfway up the mountain that you suddenly have no viable holds around you, while a few meters to your left there are several perfect points of support. And those supports make the difference between life and death. Through lighting, shadows, surface detail and clearly defined rocks or ledges, Cairn communicates whether a surface offers reliable grip. When you move Ava's hands or feet towards such a spot, you can see the limb rotate slightly as it recognizes the hold. Press square and it effectively clicks into place. It feels satisfying every single time. Each ledge or small outcrop you reach is another step closer to solid ground. Reaching solid ground after a grueling climb, during which you have slipped multiple times and narrowly avoided a catastrophic fall, feels incredibly rewarding. Not just because you finally get a moment to catch your breath, but also you can turn around and take in the stunning view you earned. No XP, no new levels, no coins. The view is your reward in Cairn, and it makes every climb worth it. I often use the photo mode, which is fantastic and pretty much unrestricted, to slowly pan back towards where I had come from. It was always satisfying to see how much distance I had covered and how many dangers I had survived. Cairn's striking art style enhances this feeling even further. The environments and viewpoints are consistently spectacular, whether you are climbing in broad daylight, during a glowing sunset, or beneath a star-filled night sky. And once you are done taking it all in, there's hopefully a save point nearby, giving you a place to set up your bivouac. I practiced that word, I hope I said it right. Bivouac. And prepare for what comes next. Sitting down in your bivouac always feels like a well-earned break. Cairn does an excellent job of conveying the sense that you are locked in a life or death struggle against the elements, and taking a moment to warm up and refuel in the safety of your bivouac gives not only Ava a chance to catch her breath, but you as the player as well. Inside your tent, should have just used that word since the beginning, there are several things you can do to prepare for the rest of your journey. One of the most important is cooking. Cairn does not just challenge you to climb a massive mountain successfully, it also asks you to keep track of hunger, thirst and warmth. These 3 meters are constantly draining, with the third one only active in cold environments, and if you fail to replenish them in time, Ava will start to suffer from reduced stamina regeneration and will eventually die. By roaming the flatter areas of Cairn, you can collect a variety of items. Water, certain plants, coffee beans, noodle packs and more. You can either consume these on the spot for a small but immediate boost, or bring them back to your tent and combine them there to cook proper meals. For example, adding water to your noodles turns them into a filling, warming meal that provides much stronger and more meaningful boost than the individual ingredients ever could on their own. Inside your tent you can also repair your pittons, as long as you have the required materials. And pittons truly are your best friends. You can carry a maximum of 6 at a time, and they function as soft checkpoints during every climb, though they are certainly not save points. Whenever the mountain allows it, since some surfaces are simply too hard, you can drive a piton into the wall at almost any moment. It will catch you if you fall, and the spot where you placed it also allows you to go off belay and fully recover your stamina. When you hammer a piton into the wall, a short timing window appears that you need to stop at the right moment to secure a perfect placement. If you manage to do this, you can sometimes have the piton retrieved by your climbot once you reach solid ground. If you mistime the placement, however, there is zero chance of recalling it intact. All the bot will recover for you are piton scraps. You can also occasionally find these scraps scattered throughout the environment. Back in your tent you can turn 2 piton scraps into 1 functional piton. And trust me, there are few things more unsettling than heading out with too few pitons, especially as you move closer to the end of the game. They are literal lifesavers. In the tent, just like on solid ground or while off belay, you can also sort through your backpack. You can consume or compost items to free up space, because once it's full, it's full. Composted items eventually turn into chalk, which temporarily improves your grip while climbing. Speaking of grip, you can also reapply tape to your fingers to ensure your hold stays firm. Last but not least, you can also check the time of day and the weather forecast and decide when it's best to head out again. Personally, I try to avoid climbing in the dark as much as possible, since good handholds are much harder to spot. Rain is something you want to avoid altogether, as it makes Ava far more likely to slip. You may have noticed by now that there's a lot to keep track of in Cairn, perhaps just a little bit too much at times. I am not a fan of survival games. Last year, The Altars was one of the few exceptions to that rule, but in general they stress me out way too much. On the one hand, I appreciate realism and I do enjoy having to take things like hunger, thirst and sleep into account. It's also one of the reasons I enjoyed Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 so much, which I consider the most immersive game I've ever played. In true survival games, however, essential meters tend to drain faster than I would like, and Cairn is no exception. During the first half of the journey, I actually appreciated it. It added an extra layer of realism and gave me more incentive to carefully scan environments in search of food and water. Finding key ingredients, cooking meals and consuming them at the right moments definitely added something to the overall experience. As I moved into the final hours of my climb though, that appreciation began to fade. This was mainly because I was already dealing with an intense and demanding ascent, since this game is anything but easy, and I ended up blacking out because Ava froze before I could reach solid ground. At that point, I was already struggling enough with the core challenge of not actually falling to my death, and I did not want to juggle the additional pressure of the survival mechanics on top of that. The meters drained too quickly, creating a sense of urgency that pushed me to rush, which in turn caused mistakes to pile up. Turning off these survival systems brought a sense of calm back into my head, and more importantly, it made the spectacular final stretch enjoyable again. The mechanic also introduced another drawback from the very start. I noticed that it discouraged me from exploring the environment or pursuing certain side objectives. The risk of starving simply did not outweigh the potential reward of straying from my main objective. The conclusion. Cairn is a unique experience. Its art style, sound design and gameplay all point in the same direction, simulating a realistic, seemingly impossible climbing expedition, and it succeeds at that goal with confidence. The feeling of reaching solid ground after a brutal climb, one where the difficulty can be genuinely punishing, is indescribable and something you simply have to experience for yourself. Minor frustrations, such as the automatic selection of the wrong limbs or the rapid drain of the survival meters, can thankfully be changed through the settings. The thin story is something that can be fixed in the settings, unfortunately, but the game's unique gameplay more than makes up for it. Thank you as always for checking out this review. If you enjoyed it and thought it was useful, please consider clicking on the subscribe button down below.